Hey folks, Joe Valley here. Welcome back to another episode of the Quiet Life Podcast. This episode is with Jaryd Krause from buyingonlinebusinesses.com. I think this is such a critical topic. Buying a business, how do you do it? What kind of preparation do you have to do? What do you look at when making a decision? How do you be a great buyer so that you can buy the business over, that jackass with all cash that's outbidding you? There's so many things that go into it. And you would think that us at Quiet Life wouldn't want to help you with this because we sell online businesses. We want you to buy these businesses and we want you to win. We want you to have success with it so that someday down the road, you'll resell it and think of us and you'll get a much higher value too. So this is with Jaryd. He's done this for a long time. He is an expert in the space. I think getting help when buying a business is critical. Learn as much as you can. Use resources like buyingonlinebusiness.com or the acquisition lab with Walker Deibel, as you all know from here at Quiet Light in his book, Buy Then Build. Use these resources to make sure that your purchase is less stressful and more successful so that you can do it a second and a third and a fourth time. We go into a number of things that you've got to look at that are really obvious to Jaryd and I, but might not be so obvious to you. And then he talks about the tools and resources that they're able to provide to help you with, learning how to run the proper reports in Google and Analytics and SEO and looking at financials and things of that nature. It's just he and I chatting as it always is, but it's incredibly helpful and useful, and it gives some real golden nuggets here. So if you're buying an online business, take a listen. If you're selling and you might buy one yourself someday, take a listen as well. It's going to be very helpful for you. Here we go. Jaryd, welcome to the Quiet Lab Podcast. How are you, man?
Joe, thanks so much for having me. I'm really good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. As I said, it's been a pretty easy day for Joe Valley. It's been good. I said welcome to, but I should say welcome back. You've been on before with Mark, as I understand it.
I have maybe 2-3 years ago now. It was a while ago. So yeah, it's good to be back and having a chat with you guys.
Yeah, he's definitely not as good of a host as I am. Let me just put it out there right now. Just state the facts.
I love it. Let's just lay it down. Let's get right into the juicy part of the podcast.
Right, what it is. As I said prior to we hit record, I said, I need to talk to Walker because he's got the acquisition lab and he's helping buyers from his book, Buy Then Build, learn how to buy online businesses. You're doing it as well. And you're doing it in a little bit of a different model. And you've been doing it for a long time through buying online businesses. Why don't you, though, go ahead and tell the audience what it is that you do, where in the world you are as well, because you don't talk like I do, and what you do with the firm that you have.
Yeah. So I'm in Australia on the Gold Coast. And I got into this because I wanted to travel. So I do a bunch of traveling, a lot of surfing around, and just love different cultures. What we do with the firm is people typically come and, they find us through our YouTube channel or our podcast and check out the content. And then they decide they want to buy an online business with our help. And we teach them, we have a course within our membership. And they go through the membership and they learn how to buy a business based on the course, but they also get to ask us questions through the group, through email, and we also teach them how to do due diligence, and they are allowed to submit their due diligences to us and we review them prior to them making an offer and point out risks and opportunities and stuff like that. And and then they go buy a business. And sometimes I do this with one-to-one clients. Sometimes I coach people that want a bit more hand-holding and help them grow the business as well.
Now, we talked about this in the pre-interview. Most of your clients are actually US-based clients. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And are most of the clients that you work with buying e-commerce, FBA, content, SaaS, agencies? What kind of businesses are they typically buying?
Typically, most people are beginners. So they start off with a blog, so a content site.
Oh,
and
right.
Yeah.
Gosh, I keep seeing new listings coming up by Chris Guthrie, folks. Guthrie is, what is it? It's Chris at quietlight.com. He's like the food blog king now. He's listing so many of those. Personally, I'm just going on a tangent here. I love content sites. You call them blog, call them content, whatever it might be, just because the margins are so strong. You're doing 300,000 in revenue and you're doing, $250,000 in profit versus,
Yeah.
2 million in revenue for a FBA
E-com.
business and,
Yeah.
maybe 200,000 in profit. It's amazing,
Yeah.
really.
We really dig the content sites because yes, the profit margin, but also for a beginner, typically it's quite daunting to get into an e-commerce business and go, oh, I've got to manage all of these different things, logistics, marketing, be across, like understand digital marketing and be able to get performance out of it,
Yeah.
or at least know how to hire somebody or work with somebody that's not going to take advantage of you. We know how hard it is in the digital marketing space to have somebody that's good, reliable, and gets results that we can use as a contractor.
Do you help people, like in this case, buying online businesses that's your URL name. It's awesome, by the way. And the .com, not the .guru or anything like that. It's perfect.
Thanks.
Like going back to Guthrie, I saw this morning, he just launched a food blog listing where they're doing something like $37,000 in profit, discretionary earnings, and it's listed for like 110,000 or something like that. Do you help buyers with monetizing content sites and educate them on that, or is it strictly how to buy them?
No, I have a course in the membership. We have a course, buying online businesses course, and a growing online businesses course. Very basic. And in the growing online businesses course, we have an organic section, we have a paid marketing section, we have an email marketing section. So with content sites, yes, I've helped people scale all different business models, membership, e-com, 7-8 figures in e-com, and then also content sites. Now, it depends on the way I grow a business is not, let's learn a strategy from somewhere else and plug it into the business. I typically learn to listen to the business, and I go from inside out growth is what I call, that's my philosophy, inside out growth. Learn to listen to the business. It's basically just doing the 80-20, the Pareto principle, leaning more into what's working, doing less of what's not working. Whilst it sounds super simple, it's not easy because a lot of people get distracted with shiny object syndrome. It's like, oh, these guys did this really good. We need to get this.
We all do that. Yeah.
We all do it. Yeah. We're all human beings.
Yep.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Your audience, they're obviously trying to buy an online business. Where are they looking? Where are they finding them?
You guys.
No, come on. It's more than just Quiet Light. We're just one, right? And we don't have.
Yeah, there's a bunch. There's a bunch.
So, we're just, name them.
Name. Okay.
I'm all for it. It's okay.
Yeah. So typically, Flipper, Motion Invest do a lot of content sites, Empire Flippers. FE International doesn't really go down that route as much.
Did you say Motion Invest? What was that second one?
Motioninvest.com. Yeah.
I never heard of it. Okay. It's mostly content sites?
Mostly content sites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And we know Flipper. Yeah. FE International is more SaaS related. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the bread and butter.
That's
really.
It.
Yeah. There's people that pop up and come and go, but you guys have been around longest and been doing the most deals and transactions, and you guys have the right branding and stuff. So
sure. We try to educate in the package itself.
How long you guys have been running your podcast for? A while now.
5 years now.
Yeah,
5 years. Yeah, I just looked at the first episode today for some reason. It did the order in reverse, and I think we had 41 downloads on that first episode. and Chris Yates from Centurica due diligence firm was
Rhodium.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Yeah, and it was Rhodium weekend that it aired as well. I made an announcement on the Rhodium forum or something like that, and I got my hand slapped because you're not supposed to promote anything. But Chris, it's you on the podcast.
Exactly. Really? When you're promoting your episode, his episode, really?
Yeah. But no, I totally respect what he does or what he did, because Centurica has been sold to Nate Ginsburg.
Yes.
Maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, actually. Not sure.
It might be longer than 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, closer to a year, because I know that there was a lot of business with aggregators prior to Nate buying it, and then the aggregator implosion last year has affected the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, man. When something goes bananas like that, like the trend when something goes up super fast, like so many people are getting, so much money is getting poured into the aggregation, FBA aggregation. There's only what goes up really fast, typically not always, but that's where I see things. I'm like, I get worried there. But yeah, Chris is an amazing guy. I met Chris in, I think, 2016, before I really started buyingonlinebusinesses.com. And I went on his podcast in 2016. So that's at least, 7 years ago?
Yeah. Took you a while to count the years there. You sure you're good at math? You sure you're running
I'm
these
not great at
businesses
maths.
well?
I'm not great at maths.
Yeah, Chris is a good guy. So, in theory, if somebody is listening and they want to buy a content site, let's say, we just named a bunch of places that they can look. What key things are they going to look for when buying a content site, to determine whether, it's a good investment or not? That kind of stuff.
Great question. The first thing that I like to tell people to do, the philosophy that I share, is most people want to buy a business. So sometimes they sell themselves into a business. I teach people to do due diligence so much that they need to prove the business is a bad investment. And if they can't, then they must buy. And how we do that is we just look for risks. And the risks are traffic trends. So looking at Google Analytics and looking at the traffic trends. Is the traffic trending up, down, sideways? And most importantly, why is the traffic trending in a certain way? And also understanding the trend. For example, if the trend is like what we said with the FBA aggregation, if it's very steep incline, is that sustainable? Or if it's very steep decline, how much work would need to be put in to reverse that trend? If it's a less of a decline, it's very small and over a longer period of time, then maybe it's a lot easier to reverse that trend as well, and understanding if you can reverse that trend or if you've had experience doing it in the past. So that's just one thing, checking the traffic sources, single source dependency based on pages. If a site has, a business where 30% of traffic is going to one page and it's ranked quite high, and then Google changes its algorithm and you lose that rankings, and you can lose a lot of traffic, which in turn, a lot of revenue as well. Yeah. So single source dependency on traffic, where's the traffic coming from? Organic, social, Pinterest, over the last few years has been pretty fickle. People had 50% traffic coming from Pinterest, and, Pinterest changing their algorithms more so than Google.
How do you determine where the traffic is coming from? All through Google Analytics?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So you go into Google Analytics.
And in your experience, most sellers are going to allow view-only access to Google Analytics? Perfectly fine to ask for it.
Perfectly fine. It's expected.
I agree.
It really is. Yeah.
I agree.
Otherwise they're hiding something, and you're like, what's the point in
exactly
creating a relationship with somebody like that and wanting to buy their business?
One of the biggest flags, and actually Chris Yates and I talked about this a long time ago when we talked about due diligence, the biggest red flag that I think people should look out for is when it's being listed for sale or through a broker or, direct by the owner, and they refuse to give monthly views of traffic and financials. If it's quarterly or annual and they refuse to give you anything else, then just walk away, because they're definitely hiding something. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. If they've refused to give you anything, walk away.
They should have your best. I mean, this is all about building rapport, but they should have your best interest in mind as well, because you're making an investment with your money, your family's money, and it's going to affect your livelihood and your family's livelihood and stress levels in the house and everything. So good people will share everything for you to make an educated decision. Let's talk about Flippa for a sec, because you talk about traffic trends. In a very young business, there's going to be very rapid trends going upwards, hopefully, right? And Flippa has a bit of a stigma that these are young, not well-defined businesses that are not well-aged, and the younger it is, the more risk there is, and it's all being sold direct, right? So you're having to scrape for information from the seller. Is there an approach or a process that you help people with in terms of scraping Flippa for good listings? Because I find it really hard to just go through the entire thing. I mean, there's so much
there. You need to find a diamond in the rough, and to do that, or a needle in the haystack. They have started to get better. I think since Blake Hutchison became the CEO maybe about 3 years ago, they have done better than what they were previously. Previously, they were like really whoa. And I actually, in all of my content on YouTube, was like, do not use Flipper. Like, you can see how much media there is about Flipper and people having been taken advantage of on YouTube and all these different places. But it's also not just Flipper's fault. It's also the people that are not taking responsibility to understand how to buy a business as well. So with that said, I don't have a process on teaching people to scrape Flipper. Typically, people will resort to Flipper if they are struggling to find businesses from larger firms and brokers, because they just need to like fill in some time and make sure they feel like they're doing some work. It's rare that we will buy that many businesses off Flipper or our community, because it just takes so much time to find the right ones. And also the right ones do get snapped up really, really quickly as well. So yeah,
where are they buying them from? What's the most frequent one you're seeing people buy them from? Empire Flippers. I mean, Empire Flippers got some smaller listings than we do. Ours are,
correct.
a little larger.
Yeah, Empire Flippers is definitely up there. Okay. Also, Motion Invest is definitely up there because a lot of people are buying content sites. So motioninvest.com. Sometimes Investors Club, they came out hot and heavy when they sort of opened up, and then they went, we didn't see too many listings being bought by them. And then I do have more buyers looking at them these days, basically in the last sort of year, really. But those are the main ones.
I'm looking at Centurica's Market Watch right now. For folks that have not gone there, go to centurica.com. That's CENTURICA.com, and go to the Market Watch tab. There's a filter there. You can narrow down the type of listing and the niche that you want, and you can look at all of the brokers or exclude brokers as well. Funny enough, I don't see Motion Invest there in the list. I do see Investors Club, Empire Flippers, us, of course, and other folks as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't see it there. I've never heard of it. So I'm going to have to take a look, see what they're all about.
They do sell, the listings they sell are typically under the 250K range. Oh, okay. So they're selling a lot smaller deals. Yeah.
And it's 100% content sites that they're selling?
Yeah, 100% content sites, only content sites. Yeah.
All right. So let's say that, I go to, I'm going to say your URL wrong, buyingonlinebusiness.com. How much time am I going to invest on my own in learning through your courses? Do you have a forum where we talk to people as well, in case I'm looking for some specific, tell me about that.
Yeah. So it's a great question. I actually don't know how many hours are in the new version. I just updated the course in January of this year, 2023. So it's a brand new spanking course. I don't know how many hours there are. The lessons are far more condensed than they were. But there's some pretty hefty lessons in there. So I don't know the time frame. People can, if you were going to binge watch it, which I don't recommend, if you were going to binge watch it, you could probably watch it in, a week, or depending on the time frame is very hard because sometimes people have
8 hours a day for a week. Is it that long?
Yeah, no, it would be probably 8 hours a day for maybe 2.5, 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information. Yeah. You can't absorb all of that at once.
It's silly too, because I think when we learn, we need to stop, process and digest.
Yeah.
And take notes at the same time. So yeah, after each lesson, sort of there's actionable steps to go away and do, and, fill this out in the framework. I provide a framework for people to go through in how to do due diligence and then take it one step at a time. Yeah.
I'm just going to say this, I don't have people on to promote their products and, services and things of this nature, but, buyers, folks, if you're listening, you're out there and you're buying an online business, don't do it on your own. We give you
even if it's not with me, or us, like just get some help somewhere.
Yeah, no, right? It's a funny thing. We are on the sell side, right?
Yeah.
And you'd think that we don't support the buyers, but we have to do everything we can to help the buyer make a good, educated, risk-averse decision to, make an offer on the business and have it close. So if we're not helping the buyers, we're not helping our sellers. Generally speaking, the buyers are not represented. I think maybe I've had one buyer represented on a deal in what it's like. I've been doing this for a long time, 12 years now.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, really important for whatever the cost is, you're investing in this course, but you're going to spend 50, 100, $1 million on a business. It's well worth it, because you make that one mistake. Like for me, I bought a content site in, oh gosh, I know I've written about this. I've talked about it. It was just before the Penguin update. It was like March 21st of 2000. And I think that might've been 12, right? And I had like 3 great weeks. And then the Penguin update came, and my 6 keywords that were on page 1 all fell to page 2, 3, 4. And I ended up losing like $280,000 over the course of the next 12 months. The problem with that is that when you go to your loved one and say, I know, I learned a lot, I want to do it again, you're going to have a really hard time negotiating with them.
I don't know if there's much negotiation really happening there.
It's just a no, right? So I think investing in learning, reading Walker's book, Buy Then Build, going to buying online businesses and signing up for the course and learning everything you can, you're going to, hedge your bet and make a better investment, less stress, a better decision. And you're not going to talk yourself into something. This was my problem, Jaryd. It's like, I needed to buy something. I'd sold my other business, hadn't really started with Quiet Light yet. And I wanted something. I kept pushing, and I pushed too hard, and I bought a business I shouldn't have because I just wanted to get it done. And I wasn't smart enough to do all the research. I didn't know about Centurica. I didn't hire them. I just did this on my own, and boom. If I'd hired Centurica at the time and they ran the report, they probably would have pointed out the risk of the purchase, and I would have walked away. But that's something you point out, is how to do your due diligence and assess your own risk in buying a business, right?
Yeah, we are the teach a man to fish method. So the reason I like to teach people to do the due diligence of themselves is because when you do due diligence, you're not going to do it on one business and buy it. Typically, you're going to do it on multiple businesses, and the education you get from looking at so many businesses can be better than like a college degree in business. And you also learn so much about how businesses work and don't work. And you look at growth patterns and you see different growth strategies that you may not buy the business, but you can implement into the business you do buy. So the education is so damn valuable. I have a lot of people that do go, Jaryd, I've got $1 million. Can you go and buy me a business and just get the right one that you think will be good for me? That just is so scary, because then we could buy them a business and it might not actually be right for them unless we do our due diligence on what they actually want and their skill sets and how many hours they want to work and all that sort of stuff. But still, you can get somebody a business, they buy it, and they have never owned an online business before. And it can fall apart because they've never owned an online business. So it sort of gives people a bit of a leg up learning to do it themselves. I am obviously biased to that process. There are people that just want to get due diligence done. But yeah, you're right. We point out the risks, and we also talk about what you would need to do to either decrease or remove those risks, because risks are opportunities as well.
No doubt.
But some are worth taking and some aren't. So we sort of like highlight where your skill set is at and whether you can take on that risk or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me about just 2 or 3 or 4 of the top due diligence things that you're going to have, people that go through your course look at. And I know we already talked about trends, so maybe some other things besides trends.
Yeah. So basically traffic, SEO, digital marketing.
But now are within the course.
Within the course.
Yeah. So traffic, right? So they're going to look at Google Analytics. Are you teaching them how to use Google Analytics and what to look for and what reports to ask for? Yes.
Yeah. We teach them what to click, what tabs to open, how to find traffic for the last 12 months, the lifespan of the business, where's the traffic coming from in terms of country, demographics, if they've got that available on Google Analytics. We also teach them how to find the the top pages, see what percentage of traffic is going to those, bounce rates, time on page, all that sort of stuff. Or if you got on Google Analytics for engagement rate and things like that. So traffic is one big component that we teach. Another big component that we teach is SEO, like due diligence on backlinks and stuff like that. What's been done in terms of on-page SEO or off-page SEO.
How do they do that? How do you do due diligence on SEO?
So the biggest component is backlinks, looking at the backlinks and seeing how valuable are the backlinks coming.
How do you look at backlinks? How do you get a list of the backlinks?
You go to SEMrush. Good question. I love it. SEMrush or Ahrefs. And you can click into the tabs. You can look at the backlink explorer, and you can go away and look at all the backlinks that the site has and their domain authority, or DR, if you're using Ahrefs. Mm-hmm. And you can see how valuable those are. You can look at the domain and the anchor text.
In the course, are you teaching people about domain authority, and that a domain authority of 20 might be useless, whereas something of 64 is incredible?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we are.
Is 20 useless?
No.
Okay. That's why you smiled and laughed. All right.
Yeah. It depends, because there's so many, like a lot of people would like to say, Jaryd, I want to buy a site. What DR, or what's one factor? Like, what DR should I be looking at for a site that I buy? But there's not one piece of information that we need about the business to determine if it's a good business or not. Also, at the same time, is a DR20 a bad DR? Maybe not, because maybe that's an opportunity. Okay. Right? Maybe they've got really, really good content, and it's fresh content, and they haven't built backlinks to that content that's allowed them to build authority and build up their domain rating. And that could be an opportunity missed or disguised. People might see it as that, well, this content's amazing. It's fresh, but it's not getting doesn't have any backlinks, and the site is only a DR20. If you understood that, you could use that as an opportunity. Some people might think it's a risk.
Right.
So
just crystal clear clarification for those listening. This is not just for content sites. If you've got an e-commerce business where you're pumping out content, or the owner is, which is really, really smart thing to do. Otherwise, you're just paying for ads.
That's the best thing, I think, for e-com.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're going to look at SEO. We're going to look at traffic trends. What else are we going to look at?
We're going to look at financials. Super important.
So I just get an Excel spreadsheet, a bunch of receipts sent to me in the mail. What do I get? I think the audience knows the answer to this.
Yeah. If you get an Excel spreadsheet, you can't rely on the Excel spreadsheet. Anybody can put any odd fact and figures and numbers in that. You need to cross-correlate that with what's in, say, the merchant account or the ad revenue account or the bank account, or you can get access to their, I think you guys call it QuickBooks, or their accounting software. Sure. You can just get viewers access to that.
Do you get that? Do you recommend people get access to that before they go under letter of intent or after letter of intent?
Yeah. So typically they are not allowed to get that until a letter of intent has been signed to get usually. So not every broker has a process of a letter of intent. I think it's really smart on the broker's front to have a letter of intent to ensure that they're dealing with serious buyers and weed out the tire kickers.
What the heck are they doing if they're not having the buyer sign a letter of intent and then go through a due diligence period? What are they doing? Straight to an APA?
No, that's really good.
What are they doing?
Yeah,
you don't have to put anybody on the spot.
No, but what some of these businesses do is they will list a lot of data about the business, and typically you can go away and find out a lot of information about the business without having to ask for access. The main things you need to ask for access for is like Google Analytics and financials. Really, you can find out a lot of the other data through tools online, and so that's what most people will do. Now
with Quiet Light, what we do in our packages, as you know, is that we have them run a profit loss statement from QuickBooks or Xero and then export it to Excel, and then we import it into our own system so they all look the same. That's an Excel spreadsheet.
It is. I'm talking like a Google. So you put it into a Google Sheet?
Yeah, it gets exported to Excel, then we upload it to Drive, and then convert it to a Google Sheet. The key difference here is that we didn't
put the numbers in.
Put the numbers in. It's been exported, like
physically type them in. Yeah,
exactly. So what we're talking about here is situations where somebody is running a business and they don't use QuickBooks or Xero. They don't have a online bookkeeper. They're doing it themselves, and they just enter revenue and expenses into a spreadsheet. Yeah. And 9.9 times out of 10, it's wrong. I write about it in the book where one of them was right on the money, and he was doing huge numbers part-time. It was incredible. But in most cases, it's just not right. You're not capturing all of the expenses, and therefore you're seeing an increase, inflation of net income or discretionary earnings. All right. So numbers, you want to see a good access to P&Ls. And then in our situation, just so buyers understand, we provide them in detail with a monthly view going back to inception, if possible. If not, to when they started using QuickBooks or Xero. And you take them at face value, and then in due diligence, once you're under letter of intent, you get access to third-party financials reports from the bank statements, from the merchant providers, to then verify it all. It's got to be fully verifiable. Otherwise, if you can't match up the numbers, then something's really off, and you might want to trust the information and walk away. All right.
And for an e-commerce business, millions of dollars of e-commerce businesses, like you want to get that looked at by an accountant as well. It's for somebody that isn't in accounting or doesn't do accounting like myself, I'm like, that's a lot of work. What
about a due diligence firm like Rapid Diligence or Centurica? Would you consider them qualified to do the work?
If they are using CPAs, what you guys call CPAs in America, to help with the financial part of the due diligence, yeah. And if they're in those CPAs understand e-commerce businesses, they're not just a CPA that is just a general practitioner accountant, and they don't really deal with much e-commerce businesses, then
my CPA is great, but she wouldn't be the right person for this, especially this time of year, right? We're recording this on March 8th. It's tax season. She's not going to be able to find the time to do this work for somebody in the next 30 days. So, we recommend Centurica and Rapid Diligence. The only problem I find when somebody hires their own CPA is they don't have the experience. They're looking at things backwards, and they often think that because they're a CPA, they can give a valuation opinion, which is flat out dead wrong. Flat out dead wrong. They don't understand the
business,
the online business world, and sellers' discretionary earnings. They have a different valuation model that they learn in school or through some sort of course, and it's just not what we do. So be careful about those experts. All right. So we're looking at traffic, we're looking at SEO, we're looking at financials. What about the likability of the seller? Do you want to jump on a phone call or a Zoom call with the seller? Do you recommend that?
Highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. If you're spending over 100 to 200K on a business, you'd be silly not to build a relationship with the seller. In fact, I often tell people this is the most important part of the deal. And I actually teach people how to become attractive buyers, so they know how to be a likable buyer. Because I think
just don't be an asshole. It's not as simple as that. There's more to it.
There's things that you can do to build rapport. Like you can read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie and stuff like that. I've learned a lot about communication, a lot about speaking, a lot about relationship building, because I think it's super important in business. And some of the things I just like to lend and share with our audience, and also through the course, because I believe you should become an attractive buyer. And to become an attractive buyer, first you need to do the groundwork of understanding businesses and do due diligence. So that's a big component of becoming an attractive buyer, just knowing your stuff. But also yeah, being a good human being. And a reason I reckon this is important is because I believe a seller should choose the best person that they should partner with to sell their business, because everybody needs to win. Everybody needs to be happy. And the better you can make that relationship, the better it is for both the seller and the buyer. There's so many wins to have outside of just the transaction of the sale.
This is why you're on the podcast. I couldn't agree more. And I just interviewed Mike Nunez. Mike has bought 10 businesses from Quiet Light, sold a few of them as well. So he's kind of a private aggregator. He's bought more than that altogether. And more often than not, Mike is in a situation where there's multiple offers and his is not the highest, but he wins. Why? Because he's a good human. One of the key questions he asks is, if you're the seller, Jaryd, I'd say, tell me about what's important to you in this process. And oftentimes, people will say, well, I really care about my staff. I want to make sure they're taken care of and not, laid off and fired or, treated poorly. There's so many things that, are important to the seller that you wouldn't think of as a buyer. It's not just about the money. It's so much more. I had a situation where I had a business. It was $2.3 million. That's a sizable listing. I had an all cash buyer that made a full price offer at $2.3 million, and he had the cash. And then I had another buyer that made a full price offer at $2.3 million, but needed the seller to hold a 10% seller note because it was an SBA loan. And that's what you had to do at the time. And my seller didn't trust the cash buyer because the cash buyer wasn't nice. He wasn't kind and couldn't communicate with him well on these buyer-seller calls that we insist happen before letter of intents or offers are made. And my seller chose this other guy, Nathan, and was willing to take $230,000 less in cash because the buyer cared about the things that the seller cared about. The buyer said, what's important to you? What's important to your team? And, checked all of those boxes that I'm sure you talk about in your course, and he got the deal. So you don't have to be the richest person making offers, the one willing to make the highest offer in order to win the deal. Do you find that to be the case often as well?
This is the reason, 100%. This is the reason that we teach people to become attractive buyers, because it saves them so much money. Often the times we will see that the seller or whoever's selling the business might be like, look, we've got some higher offers and stuff like this. And if the attractive buyer knows the business and they're confident in the seller choosing the right person, like confidence, people are just attracted to confidence, right? And so if the seller's like, look, this guy offered less and knows the business, asked way better questions about the business, better questions about me, we connected on an emotional level in a good sense, and I really like this person, somebody I could work with, and they would probably enjoy the time in training and working with through the sale of the business with that person, but they offered less, and they'll go for that. And we often as buyers will sit back and be like, all right, cool. Sometimes the seller or whoever's selling the business might want to try and get a bit more for the business, and that's great, cool. And there might be ways that can be done. And we'll just be like, if you get a better offer, sell it to that person if it's right for you to sell it to that person.
Yeah. And
that really shows the seller like, okay, wow, this guy knows what the business is worth, right? Mm-hmm. I talk about buying respect, and how you can buy respect is through being a confident buyer, which is being an attractive buyer. And you can buy respect of the seller. And how you buy that respect is you doing the work on yourself and in the space. And so
it's important for after closing too, because you're as a buyer, you're going to need that seller after closing. First, you got to work with them during due diligence. This is where the compounding comes from. Correct. This is where the compounding comes from. You can save money on the listing, on the purchase, but also by being somebody that the seller is happy to get on the phone with and enjoys talking to them. You may speak for an extra 15 minutes, and that seller may share one critical thing that they shared in the last 15 minutes of the call
that about the business that they might have done or would be a good strategy or something you think about. And it could make the business infinite more money in the future just by sharing that one extra thing because they felt like they needed to, right? And they had a good relationship with the buyer. So my buyers, typically the relationships they have with the sellers are so good. They overextend their time in training. They overextend themselves through communication, and they go above and beyond because they just work together and they love each other in a sense.
Mike Nunez was talking about one of the recent businesses he bought. He ended up being such an attractive buyer, such a likable buyer, that the seller was going on a vacation with his family, rafting down the Colorado River, and invited Mike and his family. And so they spent 11 days without mobile phones rafting down the Colorado River after closing. It was just, I mean,
love that.
It's invaluable. You get so much information sitting around the campfire talking about life, but also, this in the business, I could do this. And it's so important.
Yeah. And that's just in the 11 days, like together, like there's so much value in that. And they're not going there. I'm sure both of them are not going there with the intention to just talk about business. They're going with families.
No. They're with their families. Yeah.
But also that relationship basically sets the foundation of how that relationship is going to grow from there. And the opportunities that happen outside of that one transaction in 5, 10, 20, 30 years in the future, together with these two smart people in business that like each other, that's where the real value is in that relationship.
100%. Now, we don't allow offers to be made on businesses without having a buyer seller conference call. How do you feel about that?
It's smart. It's smart. You guys are selling listings, above the 200K range. I would say it's necessary as well.
Well, 50K is a lot for a lot of people. If I'm buying a business for 50K, I kind of want to be on the phone, preferably a Zoom call, so I can see the whites of their eyes with somebody that I'm talking to and I'm about to send them $50,000.
Yeah, I agree. $50,000 is a lot to a lot of people. And a lot of sales these days go without, like, on these, we might say lower end listings, but they're not lower end for a lot of people. But sub 100K, a lot of deals are just being sold like this without seller calls. And I do insist my buyers to have a call with the seller, but sometimes they're not open to it. And the reason being is,
what's the reason? They're hiding something?
The reason is the market. And this is what frustrates me is when you have uneducated buyers just buying deals because they think it's good, then the sellers at that price range will go, well, I could just sell it to this person without having to have a phone call to 10 people and without having to give too much information, and I'll just sell it. The market sets the pace, unfortunately, and which is why it's upsetting and frustrating at times for us, where we educate people to try and make the market better, in a sense, for every person. And people will sell deals for 100K without speaking to them. And that's just where the market's at, right?
Quit it. Don't do it, folks. Don't buy those.
I agree.
No, I wouldn't do it. All right. What's the absolute biggest mistake? Let's wrap it up with this. I'm going to put you on the spot. The absolute biggest mistake somebody makes when buying an online business, or that you've seen somebody make?
I think you mentioned it earlier. The biggest mistake is not getting help.
Simple enough. Get help, people.
Yeah.
Get help. Yeah. I tell you what, I'm considered an expert in this space. I've written a book. I've been at this for over a decade. QuietLight's got an incredible brand and reputation. If I were to buy an online business, I would absolutely get help. No question about it. I would probably ask Amanda to help me with, the SEO stuff, because she knows Ahrefs like nobody I've ever known. And I would hire a firm like Rapid Diligence or Due Diligence to help me just verify absolutely everything. And then what they do in that process, like you said earlier, Jaryd, is they point out the weaknesses in the business, which turn into growth opportunities. So I would absolutely do it. So I'd highly encourage everyone, go to buyingonlinebusinesses.com, check it out. It's got to be the best investment you're going to make if you're looking to buy an online business. I'll throw it out there. Buy Walker's book as well. Buy Then Build. You gotta get
it all.
Your information from all different sources and learn as much as you can, so that when you make the leap into entrepreneurship, it's a permanent leap and it's a successful leap, and it's a fruitful leap financially. So Jaryd, appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on again. Keep doing what you're doing. You're helping a lot of people. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Joe. Appreciate it.